you're going to hear my kids. Hello, everybody. Oh my gosh. Bjorn, another book launch, another celebration in this amazing series. So I love doing book launches with you because your series was an unexpected love of mine that I did not expect to love. Fantasy and all those things generally aren't my realm. You guys know I love psychological thrillers. The more messed up the person is in the head, the happier Amy is, which is weird. But your book did all of that and more for me. You made me a fantasy lover, for one. And so I'm excited that we're launching book 4 today. It is out. We're here to celebrate with your editor. Sandy is on, and she has talked to you before from the Fire Book Awards and everything like that. Dina will pop on at some point in her life. She's going to pop on, who does all of your covers. But, oh my gosh, Bjorn, what does it feel like? You got 4 books out now, man. I love it.
It's surprising. I didn't expect this to become 4 books. Well, it's going to be 7, but I didn't expect it to be more than 1 originally. So it's been out of control.
Since I'm not part of the team that does his book, tell me, you're launching book 4, but you're working on book 7?
7 is, I got to finish proofreading it, but 7's pretty much done, and 8 is the one I just finished the draft on, and that's the one that the lovely Andrea will be looking at in June, I think, right?
So where are 5 and 6?
They are scheduled to be released. 5 will be in May. Amy, do you remember when 6 is scheduled to release? I know it's after May.
So they're all going to be released this year, 2025?
I think through 6.
We're gonna get 6. We're gonna get 3 out. So we have this one. The next one's coming out in May, and then we're gonna bring book 6 out in the fall. Is our goal. So we're gonna get 3 of them out this year, which I always find fun to do. I like a little stress in my life, Bjorn, and that's great. I love doing those for sure. But I think your series, for one, is one that I don't want to make people wait to get the next book, because I'm not a fan of cliffhangers at all. But I am one that, see, I told you Dina would join us at some point in time.
Dina.
Hello. I am one that likes to move on to the next one if it's out, and I feel like in fantasy that's important. When you're world building and building these things and these adventures, it's important. And so I'm excited for the challenge to get it done, and I know Dina's excited too, so we're all going to get it done. And so so we got this one out today, the one out in May, and then we're going to do the one in the fall that's going to come. That one is TBD. The date is TBD on that one. But it will come out.
Now that Dina's here, I will have to publish a retraction. I said she would struggle getting book 6's cover done, and she had it like in 10 minutes. She had an awesome cover. So
she's great. I know.
As long as I get good, like a good description, what do you have in mind? Man, I got all kinds of image places that I don't mention because I don't want to give away my secrets, because then someone else is going to tap into all of my artwork and I won't be able to find anything.
Now the preliminary book 6 cover looks really awesome. I loved it. I was surprised how fast you put that together. It looked good.
Thank you.
Well, Dina, I know you said, because I know I talked to you before about your covers, and honestly, I've tried some of the exact same things that you said, and mine do not look like it. My pictures, my images don't look the same. So I'm like,
she just has the finesse to do it. I mean, she just has the finesse and the eye for it. And you're just like, this would take me like 10 hours to do.
Oh, no, it's not 10 hours. It's like the rest of my life. And I don't even see any hope. So good job, Dina. You really do an amazing job. And we have been interviewing all these people, these authors. And I'm just real impressed with the whole team. Really.
Well, I do know. Well, no, I do know me and Bjorn. Bjorn always says, the next one's going to be a challenge. And I'm just like, oh man, it probably is. And then Dina knocks it out. And I know Bjorn, you're similar in this, but I'm like, oh man, I thought I loved this cover, but now, this next book that you've done, I love that one. That one's my favorite, but I love them all. Like, that's my problem.
Bjorn's the first cover It's because it's purple, I'm trying to. Sooner or later, we're gonna have to do pink, and I'm gonna like sneak a little flamingo in there somewhere, and not telling.
Mario goes to Florida.
There you go, with pink flamingos everywhere. I love it.
Oh, that would be my dream.
Oh goodness! Oh my goodness!
No,
but so
how did you find this group of people?
What's that? I'm sorry, I missed it.
How did you find Amy and Dina and Andrea and this whole group of people?
Well, when I started looking for the first bit of help that I knew I needed, I was looking for an editor, and I just happened across Andrea's website.
Oh,
that was just dumb luck, and I said, let's try it, and I'm very glad I did. And then when I started talking about marketing, she put me with Amy, and then Amy put me with Dina. So it was kind of a chain reaction, but it's worked really well. I'm very happy with it. Oh yeah, no doubt.
Well, you just kind of stumbled on this whole group, didn't you?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't skill. I can tell you that.
Because I met Andrea. What is it? Been 4 or 5 years ago? Andrea?
It's been some years ago. Through Roger Leslie initially, and then you worked on my cousin's book, 2 Feet. Thomas Oswald. Yeah.
And how long ago was that? That was 2 or 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years
At least. That was probably, like you were saying earlier, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 5 years ago, because I remember working on that, and I had just had Meadow.
Yes.
And Meadow's almost 6, and she would have been just a couple months old.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. And it's amazing how all these people connect,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm glad I'm part of it. Even though I'm retired, I still like to be part of it.
Absolutely.
I love it. Yeah, no, everything I learned is from that lady right there, Sandy Lawrence. So she's how I met Dina, because I met Dina's mom through Sandy. And then it was the funniest thing. And I love telling this story because it's just true. They didn't think me and Dina were going to get along. And Dina's like my bestie. So they put off introducing us for like years. It was great. So when they finally did, we're like, I don't know what
they're going to hate each other, or they're going to get along like gangbusters.
No.
So.
No, it's been great.
I'm not nice. I'm really not.
She's lying. She's the biggest cream puff in the whole world. She's lying. She's lying for sure. But
you have this facade around you that just keeps you. You want everybody to think you're this big bad bitch and all that stuff. But you are.
But I am.
No, she's the queen. She's the queen of interior book design and cover design. And so I would put anybody with Dina that wants quality, Bjorn, which is why you are with Dina. Because like you said, she can just knock it out, and they're just beautiful. All of your books in this series are beautiful. The writing and the editing in them is beautiful. I know when you had told me that, Andrea was your editor, I knew that you were in great hands. I know her from Roger. She is amazing. So that's why I was like, oh, well, he's in good hands. We're going to put him with Dina, big old cream puff Dina is who we're going to put you with. So
just be thinking about a 7th color that's not pink. Not pink.
Isn't that interesting? All those female heroines in these stories, but I cannot possibly imagine a pink book cover for these ladies.
No,
just too don't.
Well, keeping in mind, book 7's Josephine Peel, and that's the last thing she is pink and fluffy and bunny-like. So
yeah, she's dark for sure.
Let's see, we've done blue and purple and red and green.
I like teal.
Yeah,
black.
Teal is so
Josephine's
black.
I'm just
black.
Yeah,
I like that.
Gray, black, something like that.
I like that.
Dark.
Black with a pop
or
of
brown.
color.
No, that real dark coffee
with the
brown.
flamingo.
Bjorn, you might want to double check the cover that you get. Dina's going to put a flamingo somewhere. It's going to be the
This
Easter
will be
egg.
one of those. See if you can find
see if you can find
flamingo.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
I'm
goodness.
going to put a little flamingo on the copyright page on the inside.
She's gonna, yeah, she'll put it as her logo, her business logo. It's now a flamingo. That's what she'll do to you.
So if you look at the flames belching out of the pistol at her enemies, you will see a flamingo, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Somewhere around there.
I like it. I like
Where
it.
you least expect it. How's that?
Yeah. Well, so this is book 4, and I always like to dive in, right? And you kind of mentioned it, Bjorn, at the beginning. You really didn't think that it was going to advance into the series in which it is, right?
Oh, no,
so
not at all.
Talk to us about how you're now at book 4, but we're also talking about book 7 and 8. And so how did this, series and world and characters just evolve and where they needed all of these books?
Oh, yeah. Well, it started, like we talked about before, it started with just an idea about merging a few of my interests, and it was going to be a short story. And it turned into 1 book, then 2, then 3, and 4, and on and on and on. But where it really started exploding, I think, was all the characters. I'm kind of new to fiction fantasy writing. I was always a technical writer before, or nonfiction. So when I turned on that part of my brain and started writing, I realized my favorite part of doing it is character development. Making unique, fun, interesting characters is the most fun part of story writing, in my opinion. So every time I developed a character, I kept thinking there's more to this character than this 10 minutes that they're in this story. So I have to write another book now to make up for this character. And then what about this one? But what made it, I guess what made it, took it to the next level as far as a series of books was there was all sorts of opportunity to connect them all. There was all sorts of opportunity to weave that thread of each character throughout the back, the overarching story in general. And I love throwing twists and surprises in there. I'm sure Andrew will agree to that. And I try to make them where you don't see them coming. Sometimes I lead you to them. Sometimes it's it's a surprise. But it always ties back to something that's happened in another book. So everything in every book connects to everything else in all the other books. It became quite a challenge, but it was a fun challenge, and obviously I enjoyed it because it turned into this many books. If I didn't enjoy it, I'd have ended it at 3 like I originally was going to do and say, okay, that's it, I'm done. That's good. But book 4 in particular, the one that's launching now, that was a character that honestly was kind of a last minute decision. In book 1, Mariel runs into Ingrid at a funeral pyre in Scandinavia. It was turned out as Ingrid's uncle, who was a kind of a mystic character too, which he doesn't show up but for a brief period of time in person, but his influence carried throughout the whole story in a way. He was this blind mystic character that happened to be Ingrid's uncle, and that's where Mariel and Ingrid met, and they became good friends. Now keeping in mind, Mariel and Ingrid are opposites. Mariel's average height, average build, but she's dark skinned, wild black hair, green eyes, very hyperactive, very impulsive, does whatever she wants when she wants, and doesn't care what people think about it. And Ingrid is exactly the opposite of that. She's 6'6". She's huge, very muscular, very masculine looking, bright red hair, but she's very militaristic and very structured. She trains warriors, and she's a military fighter of the age. And they're opposite, so you wouldn't think they would become friends, but they were very good friends. And they come to find out over time, in the living world and outside the living world, I'll leave it at that their destinies are also intertwined. Mariel has a very huge destiny against the dark, saving the living world from overrun by the dark. And Ingrid's exploits after they part in the living world lead into book 4, and she has all these things she has to accomplish just to set the stage for Mariel to accomplish hers. And that's what all the next books really dwell on, is all these other characters that have huge parts to play, just so Mariel can come back and do what she has to do. It's showing like kind of a butterfly effect thing. Everything that happens affects something else, and all these things have to happen in a certain order, in a certain time and place, by certain people, to even set it up to have an outcome that's favorable. And I don't know if I did all that justice, but that's basically how the next books go. And Ingrid's is the next one, but she's got many destinies. Her father was Harold Stone Splitter. He was the jarl of their home village of Deerhagi when they were all back in Scandinavia. And there's probably another book eventually that's going to explain how he was killed and how the progressive visions he had for Scandinavia kind of crumbled because he was killed and his brother Orin was blinded. And this, of course, is Ingrid's father. And she has to go back now and rebuild his vision. So she goes back to Scandinavia to retake her village and make his dream of a peaceful, more united Scandinavia take place. And all of that feeds into much further in the future in World War II era, where Norway and Scandinavia plays a part in the Allies defeating Germany. That's what we know about. But also it was helping the light defeat the dark in their overrun of the living world. So it's hard to simplify the story as I sit here, but yeah, it was great to write, and I do believe this is probably my favorite one out of all of them so far. I know that's kind of like a kid, a parent picking their favorite kid, but that's kind of how I think book 4 was my favorite one to write.
Hey, we all have a favorite kid. It just depends on the day and what we need or want from them. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
It is 100% the truth. Yeah. Or, if they want to think that they're your favorite because, they're going to do more stuff for you. Yeah, my favorite, of course. But no, when you were talking about it, I had things connect for me in your book that I guess subconsciously I was missing in it. But I think the reason that I love your two main characters is because, and Dina probably knows what I'm going to say, it reminds me so much of me and Dina, like of our relationship. I'm not even going to lie. It truly does, because I need Dina to create beautiful covers and beautiful interiors so I can market them. Right. So it's like one feeds the other. But our personalities are what you just described. And so now that you've connected all of these, pieces for me, when I go back and reread them, I'm going to just picture me and Dina there. And so I don't know how that's going to happen.
Are you trying to say, okay, who's Dina? I need to hear you say it. Which one's Dina?
That's easy. I can read it in my head. It's the one that starts with an M.
Muriel.
Yes, thank you. In my mind, it sounds good. When I say it out loud, I'm like, Muriel? I'm like, come on. Yeah, that would be Dina. Dina would be the, the tall, the badass one. And the other one's just like, puppy-go-lucky in a sense compared to that one. So.
Well, you know what I thought of as you were explaining the stories and all this, it sounds like you're having a lot of fun writing these.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It sounds it's like great fun.
You just keep on going. Yay. So
and I can tell you just from an editor's perspective that it is hard to describe. There's a reason it's hard to describe all these layers. And I know too that Bjorn really is protective of not revealing the twists and the turns. He certainly doesn't want to give anything away to someone who's going to read it. But when you're reading it, despite the number of characters or the layers that are there, it's not hard to understand. You don't get lost in the facts. And I can be one of those people, especially when there's a lot of action, even in movies and stuff. I can start to get lost in the facts. But you don't feel that way reading this book. In fact, you just feel more and more drawn to the characters because he does such a great job creating them.
Yeah, it is like a smooth read for sure. Right? It's not one because you'll have some fantasies where you need to create like a family chart and you're trying to figure out which one and what's happened and where we're going and all those, and they can be more complex. And I feel like this one, especially from a non-seasoned fantasy reader, is very like smooth. You don't really get lost in anything at all. And that's what I was going to ask you before you made all these light bulb connections to me. Is, you wrote a lot of nonfiction and technical writing. And so I can only imagine how difficult that would be to switch and go into fiction, right? And to the extent in which you are. So what was that like transition and kind of pivot like for you? Like, would it be easier to go back to nonfiction, or what was that like?
Yeah, I think I could. I did have a little bit of practice making the transition, because when I say these are my first fiction works, these are the first fiction works I've ever tried to publish or do anything with. But I did play around with short stories and poems and things like that. I did piddle with creative writing just as something to do, just as an impulse thing, but I never tried to actually make them into anything. I just did it for my own personal satisfaction. But when Mariel's story started, it was it just built and it built and it built, and I finally said, okay, I can make this, could be a full-length novel. I can do this. By the time I was done, I wasn't done. I said, no, I'm not done with her. She's too good of a character. There's got to be more to this. So I went on and wrote another book and another book. So it just kept going. But like I said earlier, and then it developed into more characters. But going back to technical writing, I believe I could. I mean, I wouldn't enjoy it as much, though. This is too much fun.
Oh, yeah. No,
I can make stuff up, and it's awesome. I can't make stuff up with technical writing and nonfiction. You can't make it up.
Yeah, no, not, yeah. I had to write a research paper in college for my like experimental psychology. I had to like run an experiment and do all that with like numbers and math and stuff. It all had to be actual. No, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And I'm not a writer. I know. But yeah, no, that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. So I could picture where like fiction would be more fun. I think it was just, fantasy, and doing it, I could see that'd be fun. But then like building that whole thing to me would be, to me, intimidating. But again, I'm not a writer. You know what I'm saying? So I could see like that fine line. Look, even Russell tuned in. Oh, Russell.
Hey,
And then ZBD ordered your book. Yay. So, I mean, I could see that. So
I see Zach's here. Hey, Zach.
Yeah. Is he the one that's ordered the book, the ZBD?
Yep. Yep, that's him.
Now we know your name, Zach. We know your name. I guess my question is, how long had you had this story kind of percolating before you took action on it and made it what it is today?
I think from the first scribblings, it was about from the first scribblings through. That's a hard one to answer. I'm not really sure. I know I piddled around with the basic idea of what this character was going to be for a good little while, several months, before I really sat down and started writing a structured story. But within 6 months, I'm thinking I had the first draft done.
Yep.
But I think by the end of 2 years, I think I had book 1 and 2 done when I contacted Andrea. I can't remember the timeline. It was roughly 2 years before I had the first 2 books were done, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm not really sure, but like I said, I didn't initially set out to write a book. It was going to be just kind of a little short story about this female Norse warrior that ended up in England somehow, and it turned into what it has.
Nice. Well, I'm grateful that it's evolved into what it is, because it's been a fun read. And it brought something new to me, because, I'm sure all of you guys, like as readers and stuff, sometimes when you're reading, you're looking for something new to find in their genre and you can't find it. So you're just looking for that new thing to pique your interest. Right. And that's what you did for me. Who would have thought fantasy for me? That's so it's kind of like, and then Andrew's over here like, yeah. So she can attest to it. But it's one of those, like, now you have like a lifelong fan. I gave him to my husband to read, and that's like he's very much like, he's boring is what I say. He's like he's like the motivation. No, he likes to read. He likes to read like the motivation, better yourself, inspiration, and like, those are great. Those are fabulous. But I want like something kick-ass, keep the page turning. I want to stay up all night and read it, take me out of reality, all those things, right? And so I gave him to him to read. And so, he's working on book 1. He's slower than I am, but, so you're getting new fans out in fantasy. which I always think is great. But I want to pop over to Andrea because I feel like she can fact check your timeline there for you.
She might know better than me, to be honest.
You're right. I know when we talked the first time that you had completed book 1 and I think you had finished book 2, but you were like revising it.
Yeah.
And
I do recall having some doubts about whether to even continue with book 2, I think. And that's where,
well,
if I remember right.
I mean, if we're honest, we have that conversation with each book, right? Like, should I continue? Is this the place where?
No,
like,
you're right.
You know, but
I'm my own worst critic, kind of.
No. But I would say, don't let him fool you. Like, he is not only just a phenomenal writer, but man, he cranks out material. So let's see, if he had done 2 books when we first talked. Has it been less than 2 years now? Or
yeah,
3, 2. I think it's been 2. And now we just, edited book 7. So he's writing them very quickly. And, to Bjorn's credit, yes, it's fantasy, but Amy, you're right. Like, that's what would be a challenge to me as a writer, is you're creating this world. And readers are smart. So if you create this world, a particular way, and several chapters in, or even a couple of books into this series, now your facts are getting kind of screwed up and the timelines don't align. A reader sees through that, and you're going to, even if you started with a good fan, you're going to lose them. But Bjorn he has that foundation of the technical writing, perhaps, but he fact checks these things. And then before we edit, he talks to me. He's like, I went through this and this. Make sure, help me check this. Make sure these facts are lined up. You don't want to change small details because people pick up on that. And so he's really great at doing that all the way through. And so when he tells you that these things have to happen before this can happen, it's because he has really put a lot of thought into that. And then on top of that, because one of his interests is history, it's a delight to me. I'm not even a real history buff, but it's a delight to me to see him start weaving in, things that we all know from American history or British history, even at times. And I'm like, that is so cool, the way he made a real historical event seem even more real through fiction,
I do want to ask this question, and I think when we talked on the phone, Andrea, I forgot to ask you this, but I know this is not about book 4, but I can't help it. I got to ask since we're sitting here. In book 7, when you edited book 7, and a certain historical event popped up where Josephine finds herself somewhere.
Yes.
With her brother.
Yes.
Was that surprising at all, or did you see it coming?
I remember reading the date, the year, and enough of the descriptive clues that were around it that I was like, he's not fixing to put her here, is he? Oh yeah, he just did. And I was like, no way. But it was fantastic. So I didn't see it coming. I did not see that coming. But it was well done. It was well done.
Well, Bjorn, when you're trying to keep all of your facts straight, your different characteristics and points of action that each character has gone through, do you keep a Bible of not just physical characteristics, but actions that they have had, their personality stuff, or you just lock it away?
I think the biggest thing I've done to keep myself straight is, like Andrea pointed out, I hate violating timelines and things, because that's what I hate seeing on TV or in a book when I'm reading or watching TV, and they're violating all their own rules, especially around timelines. Like, that couldn't happen yet. He didn't even know about this yet. Mm-hmm. So I took a lot of effort to make sure I didn't do that myself. And the way I did it was I have an Excel spreadsheet on the computer that has everything year by year and the characters when they were born. So that tells me how old they are at certain points in the story, so that I keep all that straight. Whether or not they could have even met, because obviously if this person wasn't even born yet, then they can't meet. So I did do a lot of that. But as far as keeping the characters straight in my head. They're in my head. I didn't have to do any writing down. I mean, I know how Ingrid is. I know how Mariel is. I know how Maeve the Blackhawk is. I know how all the characters are, so I could keep it straight in my head and stay true to their characters, because that's one of the biggest challenges, and it's the most fun for me is character building. I just like making unique characters, and I want it to resemble real life. You don't typically see a clone of the same person 40 times. Oh look, they're all the same. That doesn't usually happen. Everyone's got their own little ticks, and you might not even notice it, but if you really study your friends long enough, you can kind of read them. That one has a tick, that one says this when he's nervous, that one, you can pick all that out, a little bit of psychology. And with Mariel, I threw in a bunch of stuff because I wanted her to be really, really quirky and unique. She's likes round food. For some reason, she's hooked on round food. She likes pizzas and pasties because they're round, for some reason. She does become alcoholic. She's got an addictive personality. So when she does like stuff, she likes a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
And she has, yeah. So that's what I do, but I don't typically write any of it down except for the timelines and I do keep notes on the side, like of certain actions that take place in certain years, just so I could keep that straight too. If someone says, well, 5 years ago, me and you fought in this battle, I want to make sure it's right.
So
see, you completely shut down Amy's brain when you mentioned Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, yes, you did. Excel spreadsheets are the death of me, you guys. Oh my gosh. And Dina loves them, and they like flash at her when things are late. And I'm just like, no, I'm going to have a seizure. Like, I just can't. No, it's a whole thing for me. But I do like, Andrew, how you said readers are smart. And it brought me back to a conversation that I had the privilege of having with Peter James, and he mentioned that he said the best advice he had ever gotten when he was writing his books, which are like detective psychological thrillers, right, is readers are smart, but they want to learn something, right? And so I could see how in your books, because readers are smart, but they learn, like Andrew was saying, it kind of takes you back to American history and even British history. If it's things that you're not a big history buff on, then you're going to learn something in those. And when she was saying that, it just connected to me. I was like, man, like that really is a very true statement. So even in fantasy and creating your own world and doing these things, you're still learning historical facts because Bjorn, you like history and you tie these things in and the places that she goes and what's currently going on. And you have your spreadsheet to keep you on track, which just... that's this like just saying spreadsheet is exhausting to me. Like I'm just like, oh man, I can't think that. My mind doesn't think that way, but I could see where you would want to do that. But I'm just like, man, like I really have learned a lot, and it brought certain like historical things back to me that I tend to forget about, right? We forget about them. It's not an everyday conversation. And so it kind of clicked, and I was like, man, you totally did that in fantasy. So you have truly blended so many genres of a book into one. And I love that because it's done so smoothly.
I think not necessarily on purpose. Well, it is on purpose. It's not on purpose. I didn't go out with the intention. I'm gonna dip my fingers into every genre out there with this single series. I didn't think that, but the goal was to try to represent what life is. I wanted to make it as realistic as possible, but still be fantasy at the same time. And the way to do it is you have to bleed into other genres. It can't all be mystery. It can't all be this or all be that, or it doesn't represent life. And I'm not knocking books that stay in one genre because it's just the nature of the series I wrote. It's very large. It takes place over 1,200 years of history. So you got that. Plus it travels, as Andrea can attest, it travels all over the world, South America, Africa, Europe, America. I mean, it travels everywhere. The only place it didn't hit yet is Asia, and that might be next. We haven't been there yet. So it spilled out into all genres because I just wanted it to be this wide, all-encompassing type thing. And I feel like it came together pretty well in that regard.
Well, I would say it came together better than well. I mean, it's very smooth. The transitions that you make between genres and the way that you blend them together is wonderfully done. And that could be because of your technical writing background too.
I think it makes your and Mickey's job hard though, because what do you call it? You know, Andrea knows I struggled for the first year what to even call the genre. I don't know. It's everything. What I call this. And finally, somebody, a reviewer somewhere said historical fiction fantasy. I said, okay, let's go with that. That sounds good. Historical fiction fantasy. But it really is more than that. I mean, it dips into all kinds of stuff, especially the later books. A lot of psychology involved, a lot more than the previous books that have already been released. So they got that in addition. Plus, there's in the 8th book, which I know we're way away from that, but the 8th book is historical crime drama psychological thriller. So it's kind of a bunch of stuff thrown together. Stuff Amy would like because there's a lot of screwed up people in it. She'd love it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, my psych degree was like the greatest thing ever. I just loved it. But I think for me, it's primarily fantasy, right? I mean, we're time traveling, we're doing all those things. So it's like primarily that, but it's just, I'm going to blame your technical writing background because that's the only excuse that I have for it, and that you're just very detail oriented. But you blend all of these together so nicely. I mean, there are certain books out there that I have read where it's choppy, it's not as smooth, it doesn't transition very well, right? And you're kind of just like, oh, well, okay, I guess we're here, like pieces put together. And I think that is, for me, and to be completely honest with you, I think that is the most beautiful thing in your books. Your story is great. You've made me a fan of fantasy, but it's the way that you blend so many genres together without me actually knowing that that's what you're doing. Like if I didn't know this industry and know that there were so many different genres that are within this book, I would just feel like, wow, that was a crazy ride that I was just on, and I love it. So I think it's just, I think that's the most beautiful thing, because that's the hardest thing I would say to do, is to blend them together. So like fluidly. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. Even in copy for marketing, I could not do that at all. It would be choppy, like I was saying. Okay, so this is why, again, I'm not the writer. I live through you, Bjorn. I live through you and all of your books. But yes, I'm so excited for the more like psychologically jacked up people and the crime thrillers and stuff. That's so weird that I like that, but I do.
You'll love 6. You'll love 6, 7, and 8. Then those are
for sure.
Pretty much, yeah.
I'm counting down. I am counting down for sure.
Of the 3 books that you're publishing in 2025. Any thoughts on which one or how many do you plan to, or I guess this would be a question for Amy, to submit to the Fire Book Award?
Oh, all of them.
All of them.
I submit Bjorn's books to everything. I submit Bjorn's books to everything because I truly believe in the writing and the story of them. Because I have read fantasy before, but I haven't read fantasy like Bjorn's, to be completely honest. Because I've usually just been like, oh yeah, fantasy's great, like, yeah.
So I guess I should get this book 4. I should get that on Kindle and take it with me to Mexico to read them.
You should get all of them and read them, because you're not going to be able to put them down, to be honest.
And that's a good question, though. Can I start with book 4? Or do I need to go back and read book 1, 2, and 3 before I read 4?
It's highly recommended you start at 1 and read on.
Yeah, I would do that for sure.
I think because I've heard other people ask the same question. You could pick up 2, and I think, correct me if I'm what you think, Andrew, if you think this is wrong, but I think you can pick 2 up and kind of know what's going on. 3 picks up exactly where 2 leaves off, so you have to read 2 to go into 3. And 4, again, you would miss a lot of the detail by not reading the previous books, but you could read it and it would make some sense to you. But it's best to read them all, because it's the way the information is doled out. I do jump around into chronological order. I don't stay in chronological order, so these books do skip around. But the way that the information is laid out, the story makes more and more sense as you read it, and you find out more and more detail.
Well, I'll just have to go get verse 4 then.
I mean, that's
think
what I
of all the awesome characters you won't meet if you don't read the first 3.
I know. Well, and I have read some books that where I didn't realize it was a series, and I picked up books 2 and 3, and they make references that I'm just like, it drives me crazy not to know what they're talking about when they refer to something in another book. So
I will give this spoiler alert too. That the reason I say read 1, 2, and 3 is because the average lifespan of my characters is not extremely long. So you're going to miss some of them that don't make it to book 3.
Some of them will have already gone away before I read it. I got that. Okay.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But yeah, no, you definitely have to start at book 1. That's why I gave Josh book 1 to start with, for sure. But I'm excited about it to read it. So I think it's going to be good. Bjorn, look at you doing all these things with your books, getting them out there. Dina just knocking out the covers. Oh my gosh. But so Andrea, I get it that you're similar to me where fantasy is not your go-to book to read, right? Mm-hmm. So what was it like when Bjorn came to you and gave you these books and you're just like, sure, I'll read fantasy. And then now, me and you are lovers of it. So what was that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an editor, so I just like any other reader, really. There's books that I like and genres that I like more than others. And for me, my favorite is memoir. I just love how people's real life stories can mirror fiction. But I've been reading or editing a lot of fiction. And so, yeah, when he came to me and I looked everything over, I was like, sure, this is great. But I do remember when the date was approaching for me to begin the manuscript that I wasn't particularly excited about the fantasy aspect of it. And I got into it and I was like, oh my gosh, I am so hooked on this. I just couldn't put it down. And it's also helped me. I mean, it's challenged me as an editor to learn more about that genre. But as far as reading goes, he is such an excellent writer. It's a joy to read. And even honestly, as an editor, he tries to give me the best version of his work that he can. And anytime it's less than, I've asked him, what was different about this one? And there's always there's a thing, that's going on in his life or whatever that he didn't get to. He's just a quality writer as well, not just a quality storyteller. And usually that's more often than not, it's one or the other. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. That's
it sounds like you're getting rave reviews from all these people that are working on your team. I'm excited.
Yes.
That's a great recommendation.
I certainly hope, and I've told Bjorn this from the very beginning, and probably book 1. In fact, I think it was in my comments as I was editing, is he writes so well. I was like, I can see this in my mind in images as if I'm watching a movie. And so from the beginning, that has been like my desire for his series is to see him get the kind of exposure that it deserves and see this on the screen, and I don't know if he has a specific goal in one area or not, but whether it's something that's streaming on Netflix or it's something that's on the big screen at the movie theater, I don't know, but it is really written for the screen. It's wonderful.
I'm just going to, I'll say it like my historical nerdy self would say. I just want to see it moving pictures. I don't care what venue.
Not what media. Yeah. I would agree.
I even think I think maybe an animated series would be the best way to go with this one, just because it's not wild and crazy with fantasy where there's like magical beams of energy flying around that much or anything crazy like that. But I just think it would make a good any moving picture, I guess. But animated series, I think, would even work.
Yeah.
I could see that. But yeah, Andrea, because that's how I am. So I can always tell that I'm really going to enjoy a book or like a series book if when I read it, I can literally feel like I'm there, but it's very visual, right? I'm a very visual learner. And so if I can picture it and like what they look like and the scenes that are happening and all of that, then like you have me hooked in your writing, and the quality and the time that you put into it really shows, right? So I feel like that's the separation between it for sure. But that's probably why I am now a fan of yours in terms of fantasy, Bjorn, because like, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but like Star Wars and like Lord of the Rings and those kinds of movies, I will sit and watch them, but they are not my go-to. Like if they're on the TV, I'm not just like, oh my God, yeah, I have to sit and watch all of Lord of the Rings. No, like I don't have to. I'm okay. Now if it was John Wick, oh yes, John Wick, it don't matter which one it is. And that man probably should have died 500 times throughout that movie. I am there. My kids have to go out of the room because I'm going to stop and watch it. Like there's a difference between it. But your books, I guess, are like the John Wick of my world. Like I would stop to read your book. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. That's how my mind works. I'm telling you. Like I like to follow up on that, right? I don't go to the movie theaters. The last movie I actually saw in theaters before I went to see John Wick 4 was the first Wonder Woman. Okay, like I just don't go. I have kids and stuff, and my life is just, I'm lucky if I can get a bath at the end of the day and no one bother me, right? So, but when John Wick came out, I hired a babysitter and I was going. Whether my husband came or not, I was going. I don't care, right? And so I would do the same with your books, Bjorn. Like my husband now has to read it. He doesn't have an option, to be completely honest with you. He doesn't have an option. Like I have your book. I tell people about it that are fantasy lovers and fantasy groups, right? Especially with like Sebastian de Castell. Like I feel like you guys are on similar wavelengths. I feel like that just, I don't know. You like blew me away with it. And I'm telling you, I am a very gory, dark book reader. And so your books thoroughly just captivated me. So I'm here for it. If you want to keep writing and have 20 in this series, I am game. I'm game. Okay. You're going to get no complaints. I'm game.
You have got to stay on track with the reading, Amy. And Sandy, you've got to jump in because particularly when you get down to my favorite character has become Josephine. She's very dark. I'm not a dark person at all, so I don't know what the connection there is. but I think for me, the connection may be she's an entrepreneur, but in a very evil way. So she doesn't really have a strong code of ethics, but she's brilliant and very well written, of course. So you'll like this.
What made her fun, and I've told Andrew this when we first started getting into the new characters, we'll call them, the ones later on in the later books. Mario was pretty easy to write because I wanted everyone to love her. I wanted her to be a good guy. She was, she had her issues. Nobody in the book's perfect. Nobody in the whole series is perfect except maybe Father Francis. I think he might be the only one that had the purest motivations and stayed true to that the whole time.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, he's a father. Yeah, I would hope so.
So it kind of comes with the territory.
All the time.
I know, but I'm being hopeful. Okay, I would hope that he would be the purest.
The other one would be future character Martin Peel. That's Josephine's husband. He just had a lot of bad breaks. His life just did not go the way he wanted. And there's reasons for that one I won't give away, but Mario was easy. Father Francis was easy. And where I started getting a little bit divergent with what I wanted people to feel about characters was Maeve Lynch in book 3. She started out where you don't even know if she's a good guy or not. She seems like she might not even be on the right side of this whole thing. But by the end, she redeems herself. So she's what I like to consider the bad guy, the questionable character that redeems himself by the end of the book. She did that, and I felt like that worked out well. But with Josephine was hard because I wanted you to end with not knowing if you liked her or not. She did end up serving a good purpose. She had a part to play, and she did play it. But she was not a wholesome character. She did a lot of terrible things throughout the entire story. So I kind of wanted to leave the reader with, I don't know if I like her or not. I don't know if she was a good guy or not. And I think I accomplished that. What do you think, Andrew?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. She's one of my favorites for sure, but I wouldn't say that you love her because she's so wholesome.
Yeah, definitely not. No. But she's a very strong character, there's no doubt. She is probably the toughest one out of all of them.
Yes.
And I don't mean from like we just said, not from a spiritually pure aspect, but just from pure grit. I think she was the toughest one out of all of them.
Mental grit, determination.
So what timeline did these take place?
Which one? Do you talk about the Josephine character? Yeah, 1,200 years.
When I start reading book 1, where am I going? What century?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it starts in the Viking Age, Norse era, Norse exploration era. We call it the Viking Age typically, but it's the 800s AD. By the end of book 1, though, it's been out there long enough. I think I can say this without ruining too many people's expectations, but it ends in 1891 Montana.
Oh wow!
Now,
yeah,
of course,
wow.
Yeah, the story.
As an editor, it scared me, but it was.
Oh yeah, Andrew made that clear that was a risk that she wasn't sure was a good idea.
It's worth
initially,
But initially, I was like, "Oh, that is a big switch of setting in the middle of this book," but it obviously, in my opinion, he pulls it off, and then he continues to do things like that. And so once you've kind of accepted that's what just happened, as you go forward in other books, you almost expect it, and you definitely you're in for it.
But what I think helped make it believable with Mariel's time jumps, because it's more than just that one. It happens two times. She ends up in World War II in book 2 and 3, just to kind of further answer your question, Sandy. Book 2 and 3 are World War II era, but Mariel's still in it. But these time jumps she experiences, I believe what made them believable, and what I strived to do to make them believable, was she didn't just walk into the next time frame and like just pick right up as if she's always been there. She had to struggle to learn everything, because you know, when you're talking about 1,000-year jump from 800s to 1800s, she has no clue what's going on at this point. So she has to depend on others to figure out what's going on and adapt to it. But that's what also builds her character, is she is adaptable. She was able to overcome those things. It frustrated the hell out of her a lot of times because she didn't know what was going on. And she did have supernatural help with languages. I had to put that in, because can you imagine having to learn all these languages every time you jump? So, you know, she did have supernatural help from that aspect. But she still had to learn everything else, the culture, the weapons, all that she had to learn. And the same thing when she jumped from 1891 to World War II, or just before World War II. But she finds in book 3 book 2 when she comes back, and before World War II, she finds out there's an entire network of support set up to do just that when she does come back, because they knew she was coming back. One character in particular named Greenfeather, she's a Native American that is a descendant of Mariel's that she met in 1891. She's kind of the key that tells them we've got to build all this stuff for her when she returns, because if we don't, she won't be successful at stopping the dark from destroying the world. So she makes that connection with none other than Josephine Peel, the one we're just talking about. She showed up briefly in book 1, just long enough to quote unquote be killed and brought back. But later on, you find out in book 6 and 7, she's what built that whole support system, and all those terrible things she did under her father in New York when she was part of a crime family, essentially. She learned all the skills there she needed to build this secret organization to support Mariel when she comes back. So all of this stuff connects. That's what I was saying earlier. It all connects, and all the terrible, horrible things Josephine did served a purpose. But of course, she didn't know that initially, but it's the way it ended up going. All that served a purpose to ultimately be a good thing.
And as I'm listening to you, I'm like, what kind of mind does he have? Because this is like, oh my gosh.
I worked with a gentleman a good while back. He's passed away now, rest his soul. But he me and him, we were both supervisors where we worked. He was supervisor in a different department. And we were just sitting out at the smoke table in front of the plant one day, just chatting. And I was just rambling my usual crazy shit, like I always do. And he looked at me and he said, "How many people are in there?" And I said, and my answer was 7, but 3 are always asleep.
So you didn't even have to ask him what he was talking about.
Oh no, I knew what he meant because I was just bouncing everywhere. And I knew what he meant. He's like, "You got too many people going on in there." I know. But that helps writing.
That's great. That is awesome. So time jump, I got that. There's going to be time jump, so I know what to expect there. So I can't wait. I'll give you an update when I get back from Mexico.
Nice.
Long as it's honest. If it's bad, say
it will be.
No, I think Sandy will enjoy it for sure. Sandy's always more open to genres than I usually am. And so I think, because I know Sandy, I think she's going to like it. I think she's going to enjoy it a lot for sure. So I have total faith in you, Bjorn, to convert Sandy. I have total faith. 100%. 100% in it for sure. But man, now I'm sitting here wondering, like, how many people do I have going off in my head? Like, I don't really know. Like, now I'm just, I don't really know. I have no idea. But
if you have 7 and 3 are asleep, don't wake them up.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do that. You don't want all 7 of them going at one time. Trust me.
No. I'm doing good to have like the 1 or 2 that are constantly kind of going off. And the second one, generally, it's just, I don't know. You just take what you get from that one for sure. But no, before we got on here, right, we were all talking about where we were from, and we all know Sandy lives in Houston, right? And so I'm going to tell you guys this story because, one, it's a funny way to wrap it up, but I do have a question afterwards to do it. So this way you guys can all laugh at me and with me, because I laugh at myself all the time. So Sandy lives in the part of Houston that's Cypress, right? And she had introduced me to this author at the time when she was working that lived in Cyprus. I was like, oh yeah, that's like an hour from me. That's where Sandy lives. No, okay. I did not know that Cyprus was also an island. I had no idea. And like me and this guy were going to get coffee, all this stuff. And so I am just not geographically fantastic. And I learned that there is an island called Cyprus. And then I read another book and learned that there's an island called Skye, which is my daughter's name. So, and I can't unsee that when I read that book. Okay. So just saying to be aware of your geography when people say that they're from somewhere and you live in Texas, which is massive as hell. You're just like, oh yeah, you're down the road. Okay. Cause that's not true. I have learned that. But Bjorn, so obviously you know Zach. And so he said that he wants a role in the show or the movie. So because you know him, I am curious as to what character you would say Zach would be the best at or the most similar to.
I actually worked with Zach. We worked at the other plant too. So we worked together for 15 years, I think, off, in different places. I don't have Zach is a unique character. I need to write a book about Zach. Zach is a very unique individual. He's a good guy. I mean that in a good way though, but he's a very interesting character. But he is a self-described ginger, so that's not me making fun. He's okay. I call him the vampire. He's got pale skin, red hair, and he because he works outside. He works outside the plant, so he's covered up all the time. He looks like a sand people from Star Wars.
Nice. Okay.
But I don't know. I have to write somebody for Zach. Another gentleman I work with named Rob. He's a big time fisherman. He loves to catfish. That's what he does. That's his whole life is catfishing. So he said if the books ever become a movie, you got to have me in there fishing somewhere. I said, well, there are some fishing scenes, but they're not catfish. And he said, I don't care. I just need to be fishing. I said, okay. He goes, can I have a beard? I said, yes. You'll be in Norway. You can have a beard.
Very cool.
So.
Nice. I like it. See, Zach, you're going to get your own book, man. You're going to get your own character and your own book. Okay. So, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh, and
I love it.
Ingrid's a redhead, Zach. So the heroine of book 4 is a redhead. So that'll make you happy.
There you go. Redheads unite, man. Redheads unite. I love it. Well, Bjorn, your book currently as it launched today, and we always do launch promotion, so you know it's 99 cents. So you guys, if you're watching us live, you're watching the replay, you're hanging out with us all week, the book will be 99 cents. Make sure you go and grab it. If you've never read it and Bjorn has sold you like he sold all of us before we started working with him and reading them, go and get all of the books like Sandy's going to do so you can stay up to date and you know all the characters and what all is happening. For sure. So go and grab your copies today. You know that there's more coming from Bjorn this year. There's 2 more books coming from him. So we're going to be partying it up and celebrating with Bjorn in this series that was supposed to be 1 book or maybe 3, and now we're at 8. You know, so 20 is my goal. I'm on for 20 or however many you want to do. But Bjorn, it's always such a delight and fun to work with you, to hang out with everyone that is involved in your books, and for you to convert me to loving fantasy, specifically your books. I love your books in fantasy. I will specify on that for sure. But I'm excited for your series and where it's going to go and just your writing journey, man. You jumped in and you've just been sailing since, and I'm just grateful that I got the opportunity to work with you and to be a part of it, and these beautiful covers that Dina has popped out for you. So I just can't wait to see what happens next.
No, it's been great. We're working with all of you guys. All you guys have made this journey tolerable, because otherwise the writing's the easy part. I mean, me and Andrea have talked about this. The writing's the easy part. It's everything else that's the challenge. And I thank God you guys are here to help me with it, because I don't know how to do any of this stuff. I mean, I can edit myself, but it won't be anywhere close to what Andrea does. I can't mark it, so that's where Mickey and Amy come in. Dina, book covers. You've seen my original book covers, and so is Andrea, and they were awful.
We have improved them like 30 times. They are 30 times improved.
Yeah. And I know that.
When Amy said, "I've got fantasy books, I need you to do the cover for," and I was like, "Man, there's no way I can do fantasy covers. It's just not going to happen. You know, I'm happy with nonfiction." And she goes, "Well, just look at the original book covers. I guarantee you can. You're not going to be that bad." So
It was a fun, lively conversation.
Just to be clear, book 4 is Rune of Revenge.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
That's the one that we're launching today. Okay.
Yep, that's the one.
It's the red one.
It's
Revenge
the red
is red.
one. And then the green one. The next one's going to be the orange and black one. Okay.
Yep, that's the one. Yep.
Well, I will see you after book 4 then, when I come back from Mexico.
Have a good time down there. Be careful.
I will.
Thank you. I love it.
Well,
really everybody, I want to thank.
Get to know you. It's been great to get to know you, because we've been on. I didn't know who you were until a month, maybe 1 month ago or so, not that long ago. And now you've been on all these different interviews and calls. It's been fun. Lots of fun.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate it, Sandy. Thank you.
So you guys, I want to thank all of you guys for hanging out, celebrating with Bjorn. And you guys all know the best compliment you can give any author is to review their book. Good, bad, ugly, and fair and honest review is all that we ask. It makes the writers stronger and better writers, 100%. So go out and grab your copies, you guys, while you can. But until May, Bjorn, we will catch all of you guys later. Until next time, bye, everybody.
Bye.